Shadows of the Empire is an action game developed by LucasArts and released in 1996 for the N64. It is part of the larger Shadows of the Empire multimedia project, but I won't get into that can of worms. Saintmillion did an extensive deep dive into the issue, and I've linked that vid in the description. We're going to do something a little different this time. Instead of objectively reviewing this game, let's take a look at what the game intended to be, what it aspired to be, and in a way, what, or its legacy, eventually became. So, let's dive into Shadows of the Empire. There are some things we need to keep in mind when discussing Shadows, which is what I'll be calling this game from now on. That or SWSOE, short for Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. SWOSWE or SWOE. No, you know what? Never mind. We're calling it Shadows. From now on, it's just Shadows. First, let's briefly go over the story. They literally wrote a book about this, and several comics, so I won't go into any detail. Let's just say it spans the timeline between episodes 7 and 8. Or is it 6 to 9? Okay, you know what? It goes from Empire to Return of the Jedi. Forget about Lucas's weird I start on episode 6, you make sense of it logic. The game begins at the Battle of Hoth, takes a big leap to the end of Empire Strikes Back, and shows our favorite heroes unsuccessfully trying to get Han Solo back from Boba Fett. No, the other one. No, that's an entirely different character. Bingo, that's the dude, the OG. While looking for Han, they run afoul of the Black Sun crime syndicate, which, in trying to manipulate the Empire, hands over the plans to the new Death Star.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Yeah, well, not in this story, lady. Dash says the Bothans can live. Long story short, Black Sun loses and Return of the Jedi begins. Oh, and since Han is MIA, we have a flashy new bounty hunter / smuggler to take his place. Dash Rendar. He's just like a slightly smugger version of Han, but he'll do. In order to talk about what Shadows was, we need to talk about where it came from. Shadows was a near launch title for the Nintendo 64. Its direct predecessor was the Super Star Wars series for the Super Nintendo. They literally went straight from this to this. When you keep that in mind, you see what a monumental leap Shadows was. But the thing about monumental leaps is, yeah, sometimes they don't always work out. Like, at all. Shadows wanted to emulate the multiple gameplay modes of Super Star Wars and the Star Wars films. But since it was striving for some semblance of 3D realism, that basically meant developing multiple new games inside of one title. The relatively small Shadows dev team just didn't have the time or experience to pull this off, and there was nothing that came before them to give them any roadmap. They were in uncharted territory. And, well, they got lost. Like, really lost. First, let me talk about what I do truly enjoy about Shadows. The jetpack sections provide a great deal of verticality, and it helps you feel the scale of each level. The space battle over the skyhook feels epic and reminiscent of the Death Star trench run, only with 100% less Chewie and Han, which is a shame. The shooting can be fun, and the Battle of Hoth is obviously a genre-defining classic. Shadows deserves its roses. Now let me tell you why playing the game in 2023 will drive you absolutely insane. Shadows has several main problems, like bosses that are just slightly exploitable. But the main concerns all result from one main issue: the controls. It is well known that the N64 console has some titles with interesting controls. The unique N64 controller led to some unique control schemes in several titles. Shadows of the Empire is affected by this more than any game I have played. Most of the game is played like a third-person shooter, but with auto-aim and tank controls.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Oh, And there's platforming with tank controls. No! You see where this is headed. There's also the jetpack. Dear God, that jetpack will haunt my dreams. Look, I don't want to bash Shadows of the Empire. Shadows is the first truly modern game from LucasArts. It led to the creation of Rogue Squadron and even Star Wars Battlefront, the first two, not the EA monstrosities. Oh. Shadows is big, it's epic. It shoots for the stars and lands on, let's just say, a really tall hill. Shadows tried to make several different games. Even though each one did not succeed the way it could have, it led to big things. The swoop sections led to pod racers. The third-person sections predated third-person shooters on the consoles, and the battles on Hoth and above the Skyhook led to Rogue Squadron. Shadows created an experience never before seen on the consoles. Oscar Wilde once said, "Ambition is the last refuge of failure." Shadows is ambitious, that's for sure. But sometimes, when ambition ends, happiness begins. Shadows should have done a few things well, rather than trying to do everything incompletely. The game is still a classic, and it deserves to be remembered as such. Great games don't have to be perfect. Shadows is far from perfect, but it sure as hell is great.
Wanna come along, Dash?
Why not? Gotta earn my pay.